And welcome back to Subculture After Dark. Well, there is a brand new album coming out on the 9th of August that I've had a little bit of a sneak preview of, and I've got to say this is an absolutely sensational album. It's called Call the Devil, and it's the brand new album from Mushroomhead. And to celebrate this brand new album coming out, we've actually got one of the members of the band on the phone right now. Welcome to the program, Steve.
Hey, man, thank you so much for having me on the show and taking the time to do the interview. Really appreciate all the support.
No worries. Now, mate, like I said, this is an absolutely amazing album. Tell us a little bit about what you guys were talking about when you first sat down to start working on this album.
You know, this one was very much post-COVID vibes, so we were all kind of sick and tired of being cooped up, and I think some of that shows on the album. So there's, all those feelings and mixed emotions that we probably all went through, the ups and downs, massive highs and lows during that time. So it translates into the album, very much so. Each different song and each different recording session was kind of, extension of all those emotions and feelings that we all kind of went through. So this album is very diverse, not like the other albums weren't, but there's some serious aggression, there's some serious drama, there's some, very almost depressing moments, and then there's moments of hope as well. So I think it kind of, a lot of this one kind of wrote itself just because of the vibes we had being cooped up.
Yeah, I was going to say, I've spoken to a few bands recently that are now bringing out their post-COVID albums. They all say the same thing, where it was, this album is definitely going to be recorded in a studio together. We're not going to be doing a whole bunch of stuff at home and things like that. We're going to be heading into the studio. Was that something that you guys talked about from the very start, that, yeah, we are going to get together and do this as a kind of breakout kind of thing from the lockdowns and stuff?
We take advantage of technology, so we obviously did a little bit of file sharing for sure. But, to your point, like the very first song on the record, Eye to Eye, that was one that Gravy contributed heavily to, and that was like a result of the very first recording session that he and I had in over 10 years. We didn't have any material written. We didn't have anything discussed. We came in, the first couple of times we were in the studio, we just listened to different kinds of bands and checked out YouTube, watched movies, laughed, just kind of caught up, but just because of the vibe and just being together, it was exciting, and we hadn't been around each other, in a long time, and then obviously COVID with anyone being around anyone, so it was like, wow, we get to do this, and then Dave's going to come back and contribute some stuff. So again, that first song was a result of the very first recording session I had with Dave, and we worked on the song thereafter, but when we listen back, we're like, wow, man, there's some real solid energy there. And again, it's a result of getting together for some of the first times post-COVID and just feeling amps really loud and feeling drums really loud again, It was like, yeah, the vibe was there.
So I have to ask, how did that come about with Dave coming back to work with the band? Was it something that had been planned for a long time, or was it something that happened very quickly?
Yeah, it ended up happening pretty quickly, once we kind of talked about it and said, and again, COVID probably had a lot to do with it too, because no one was doing really anything. There was time, and we have our own studio, so we were like, hey, you want to start maybe getting together? We're going to start, banging out some sounds and playing with some gear, man. No one can sit at home anymore. We're itching to do something, and if you want to, contribute or, just come over and jam with us or hang out. And so it was just very natural type of thing. Like I said, the first couple of times we just hung out. We didn't even turn shit on and start recording. But the first time we did record resulted in that first song.
So what was that like when you guys started to record again? Did it feel like putting on an old jumper? Like, did it have that familiar kind of feel, or how did that feel for you?
It was great. For the first time, it felt like time was going really fast, and like we couldn't get enough of doing it, like for now, being able to create collaboratively for, so many months or whatever, however long that lasted, seemed like forever. Time just was going slow. And then we noticed that, man, once we got together and we were doing things, listening and working on tunes, we'd rip up 8 hours and be like, wow, today was just flying by. So that was just part of the excitement of getting back into doing it.
So what kind of things were inspiring you guys when you were working on these tracks? Because like you said, there are so many different ways this album goes. There are moments of like true emotion, there are heavy moments, there are moments that almost feel like a mood of depression. There are celebratory kind of songs as well where it feels like a breakout. What kind of things were inspiring you when you sat down to work on the music for this album?
So, I think it's kind of almost day to day or session to session where we were just kind of coming in with either the vibe of the day or the vibe that we had been maybe, harboring or whatever. So it's very, making music for us is, it's very emotional. It doesn't, just because we're a metal band, doesn't have to always be aggressive. And a lot of what you're hearing, I think, is just us genuinely writing. Sometimes we'll just sit down with Ryan will be on the piano and I'll be on drums, and we'll just go and we'll just play. And after a while, things develop, and to where we can hear, oh, wow, there's the root of the song right there. That could work. So a lot of the times we let it lead, but maybe it's a little ADD of us because we get bored with our own stuff, and it's like, too much aggression just gets maybe boring to us, or too much, drama is also like too much drama. It's like enough of a break. We want something kind of straightforward that just rocks, and then 5 days later you don't really feel so aggressive. You feel a little bit more emotional, or maybe depressed even, and that kind of writing starts to come out. So it's not really task writing when we sit down. It's more of, that open canvas of, pour your heart out if you can. A lot of people can't. They see it as a box. I'm in this type of band, so this is how we are going to sound. We're kind of, I don't know what we're doing today, but let's just do it, or let's do something.
Yeah, that makes it very interesting for the audience to listen to the album as well, because of course you never know where this album's going to go next. And there was a couple of tracks I wanted to talk to you about, like Fall in Line kind of has a real industrial sound, but then you go to something like Emptiness and it's kind of got a jazzy kind of feel to it almost as well. Tell us a little bit about that. Is that because of that, like you said, you just go with the vibe of the day?
Yeah, absolutely. And, that Fall in Line, again, very aggressive and straightforward. And I think, 4 or 5 of those songs in a row would just pummel anyone and almost be bored with it. I'm not knocking our own work, but sometimes, by the third chorus, I've kind of had enough, but it's all by design. Some of our structures are songs like, you're mentioning like other ones on the album, they don't necessarily have traditional song structures, and they're more like, if you looked at it like opera and in acts almost, if you will. That's why we get into like 9-minute songs sometimes.
Yeah.
But so there really is no rule to it when we write. Sometimes the song kind of decides that, this should develop into a straightforward, almost radio-ish style arrangement, as to where, others are just, let's just see what happens. But yeah, it is very much, mood of the week, if you will, mood of the month, if you will. Like, it definitely peaks and valleys, just like life,
Yeah. Does that surprise you sometimes as well, where a track goes? Like, I'm thinking about, like, there's a kind of experimental track on here almost with Hallucination, where it's so haunting, but it feels very, very experimental. Does it sometimes surprise you where a track ends up? Like, does it end up very different to how you imagined it would be from when you first started it?
Yeah, it's great that you mentioned that one in particular, because it was very experimental and very odd for us. And when we tried to maybe arrange it a little bit more traditionally, it just didn't flow well anymore. And maybe some of it gets a little long sometimes. Like I said, some of our stuff is more in acts or pieces, like opera or theater. So if you look at it that way, it just you maybe understand it where we're coming from a little bit more. But yeah, that song in particular, that is totally just experimenting off of a couple melodies and letting some sonic textures, like some of the keyboards and those things, grow using reverb, and like you get into that haunting layering, and it's like, wow. So it truly, like, that one grew into its own song. Like, it wrote itself. It just kind of morphed into this big creepy thing, and we were like, all right, let's work, let's kind of make that, polish that up a little bit and put that on the album. That's neat. Like, very dark art, if you will.
Yeah, definitely. Now, you mentioned before about Dave coming back to the band. You also work with Matt Wallace for the first time in a long time as well. What was it like having Matt come back to work with you guys as well?
You know what, this one was awesome. So the first time we worked with him was with the 13 album. Back in 2003 is the first time we actually got to meet him, and we spent about 6 weeks mixing that album. And then he came back to our studio in Cleveland, and we tracked the song "Crazy" here, and then that got added onto the album. And then we kept in touch for years. And then for A Wonderful Life, we brought him back to do the mastering. And that was, I'm telling you, man, right up to the money, man. We got that thing mastered or turned into mastering with Matt, and COVID hit like 3 days later. So we kept in touch throughout, COVID as well. And then when it was time to start putting this one together, we were fortunate enough that our schedules worked out, and he was available to, put his great ears and his just magic touches on this album as well. So it's our third album working with Matt. We're really blessed. So when we were finishing up the mixes, we got off a tour, and Jackie and I actually flew out to LA in his new studio, and we finished up a bunch of the mixes with him. So I hadn't physically seen him in almost 20 years, so it was wonderful to get back together and just listen to music and chop it up. And he's doing a lot of those Atmos mixes right now, so any of the he's doing some heavier bands and just a lot of different stuff. So I don't know if you're familiar with the Atmos mixes.
Yeah.
Yeah, the sound quality is incredible. Yeah, Matt's doing a lot of that work right now, remastering a whole bunch of killer stuff.
That's awesome. So, Steve, I know we are running out of time very, very quickly, so I just had one quick question to finish off with. First of all, is there any chance that we might see you guys tour Australia in the future? And what would you like to say to all of your fans out there before they sit down and take a listen to Call the Devil?
Well, we hope to get out to Australia and as far out in the world as possible to support this Call the Devil effort. We're really proud of it. And again, after the last we put it out and COVID happened, we didn't get to go out and support it. So it took a long time for us to get out and play those songs. So we're really looking forward to getting as many places as we can, Australia being one of them as soon as possible. I already hit up my agent about, possibly something in 2025. So fingers crossed. Hopefully we see you guys soon. And as far as anyone checking out the new album, Call the Devil, it's definitely a mix of a lot of the sonic textures and qualities that you've come to expect from Mushroomhead, just in a new package. And think of it more like the new Mortal Kombat. Just improved in different ways and more current and modern, but still what you're going to get.